Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, everybody. It is time for Cub Chat Live. It's our Friday afternoon weekly show where we focus on all things Cub chatting. I'm Aaron. I am joined by my good friend and coworker, Anthony. He's the director of the Cub Scouting division. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you? You're looking well.
Thank you. Thank you. You are as well. Happy to be here with you as always. Today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about that dollars and cents, the sort of the budgeting and the finances of a pack. Anthony, tell us what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. If we don't have a plan, right? That's that old saying, right? We fail to plan, and we don't plan to fail, right?
Yep.
Or the other way around.
Right.
So we want to cover and we want to talk and have this discussion because a lot of times what we do. I know you, Gina, myself, Lisa, Mike Rooney, all of us. We kind of lurk on a lot of different Facebook pages just to kind of see what the chatter is and topics that are going on. And commonly, a lot of people have questions or they have problems, and when you trace that problem, you find a root cause of that problem, because what they're talking about are symptoms to a greater problem within the pack, right? Because they keep on persisting, they keep on coming up, and 9 times out of 10, that problem, that systemic problem, is not having a proper pack financial plan, right? That means budgeting, that means financing, that means fundraising, communicating that plan, all that good stuff. So we're going to cover 4, I would say, very high level steps to developing a pack financial plan. And we love to hear from anyone who's in the audience, share in the chat, or if you have a question, we're happy to answer those questions as well as we go through these steps. Now, the first one is usually where most people misstep. Like, the first step is not to sit down with a sheet of paper and start talking numbers. The first step is to actually plan your program, right? Think pie in the sky. What would you like your program to look like? So, for example, once you pay your initial registration fees for the first time you join, if you have a proper program plan, right? Well, no one's going to pay anything anymore, right? That's going to be all inclusive. It's going to be part of our plan. So we don't have to chase people down for money, or we don't have to worry about those types of things. Den meetings. What kind of budget do your den leaders have? What kind of budget would they like to have, right? Because we were doing $2 a meeting per scout 10 years ago, does that still hold true, right? Is that still going to give us the quality program that we want to have? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want den leaders having to pay out of their own pocket for funding crafts and activities within their own den, right? It's not a fair thing to ask of someone. And then when that person leaves, it's really hard to find someone to replace that person because they think, oh, well, I don't have the financial means or the ability to pay all this money up front or to cover the cost of the expenses of running a den. So think about those things. Think about how much you want, at your pack meetings, right? What kind of things do you want there? Everything from, simple refreshments, cookies and chips and so forth. It's nice to ask someone to bring that, but it's even better for that to be built into your budget so that they know they're going to get reimbursed for that. Then think about maybe over the past calendar year, you learned about a council event or some kind of local event that you missed out on because you didn't know about it until it's too late. Well, go back and look at those things and then budget for them, right? So the sky's the limit. It really is. The first step is not to sit down with a calculator and start crunching numbers. The first step is to plan your program. Now, we have great resources for that too. You were saying? I think I cut you off here.
Yeah, so it's okay. I was just going to say right off the bat, I think maybe that might be a little bit surprising that, number one, I think most people probably understandably sit down with an Excel spreadsheet maybe and a calculator and things like that. You're saying that's actually not the first step. By the way, quick shout outs, a couple of folks. Chad's watching. Good afternoon, Chad. Jennifer from Pack 614 in Gainesville, Florida is watching. Thank you guys for watching. We're talking about pack budgeting today, dollars and cents. And Anthony has come up with 4 steps. Step number 1, already maybe a little bit surprising to some folks, plan the program. That's the first step, right?
That's
You
your first
mentioned
step.
off the bat a den leader who, you might have one den leader who's willing to pay out of their pocket, but that doesn't mean the next one's going to be wanting to do that and the next one after that and all the other ones. So that's not really fair. Great. Another great point there. You guys, we got a lot of folks watching. You guys have any questions for Anthony, please chime in. I think what you were about to say before I interrupted you, Anthony, is that there are resources available. You're not on your own. There are resources out there to help you with step number 1, which is, once again, not to bust out the calculator, but to plan the program. Go ahead, Anthony.
Plan your program, and the best time to do that is at your annual program planning conference, or as we've said in previous roundtables and Cub Chat lives, maybe you call it your annual program planning party, right? Instead of a planning conference, or
that sounds more fun, right? That sounds more fun.
It sounds like you may get more people to a party than you would to a planning conference, right? So
right.
Semantics have a lot to do with this, but we do have formal training on how to conduct your annual program planning, and that is part of the training track for being on the PAC committee, being a PAC committee chair. So if you go to my.scouting, you go to the Cub Scout training section, and you look for the PAC committee chair training. This module is 18 minutes. It'll walk you through step by step, kind of the basis of how to do a formal annual program planning, and who should be involved, and what you can be. What you can plan around. So plan your program first and make it an awesome program, right? Keep that in mind. The other tool that we have, I think we have one more tool there, is also, we've done roundtable videos on this.
Who is this guy? Who is this guy right here? That's crazy.
He's all over the place, man. This you just can't get rid of this guy.
He just shows up all the time, folks. That's not an exaggeration. He just pops up all the time. He is
absolute camera hog. We do have roundtable videos, and those who haven't seen these before, they do live on scouting.org. They're on the commissioner page. So if you just search the commissioner page, or if you just go on the main page of scouting.org and you search roundtable, you'll see the roundtable support page pull up, and you'll see Cub Scout topics. And we do have one that was posted on March of 2021 about annual program planning. And I think there we get not so much in the weeds of the tactical part, but we also talk about how to make it fun, how to make it engaging, and we get some tricks to that. So those are 2 great resources for that step 1 of planning your program. So hopefully those who are watching, you can share what you do to plan your program. What are some elements that you add to your program that makes your PAC special, right? You want to build that PAC community, and you don't want to burden leaders with having to take on expense of running their den, or put it on the parents that you're going to go to them and nickel and dime them every time that an event or activity is coming up, or that you have awards to hand out. You want to have all of that bunched into your budget and part of your program, so that it's all inclusive. Some really successful financial PACs, you pay when you first sign up, your first year. After that, that's it. Right? They have a plan that gets their families to, they do proper fundraising, and they do, or they make dues, or they have a way to fund it so that everything else is carried over, and they're not going back to parents every time there's a financial need. So that brings us to point number 2.
Okay, real quick. As we get to point number 2, I just want to give some shout outs real quick to Robert from PAC 333 in Maybank, Texas. Thanks for watching, Robert. Wendy says hello from PAC 533. Anthony, she's the treasurer for PAC 533.
All right.
So Wendy, give us some tips on how you do things. Hopefully you learn a little something here. Maybe you already know all this. Let us know. Rob, our good friend Rob from local here, says one thing that he doesn't like. He uses a different word, but I'll just say he doesn't like it. That many PACs do is charge to attend things like Blue and Gold Banquet. It's a good point. That discourages attendance when you charge, hey, the Blue and Gold Banquet is, even if it's only a little bit, I agree, that discourages attendance. It's better to build it into your PAC budget. Great thought, Rob. Appreciate that. We had one other person.
Along with that also is Pinewood Derby, right? Do you build in Pinewood Derby as well, right? Do you buy the kits for all the kids, or do you expect the parents to have to go out and buy another kit? Now, it's not a lot, but over time, you keep on asking them to buy one more thing. it's not healthy.
Right. And I think that maybe some well-meaning leaders are thinking that they don't want to charge a lot up front. But I think if you explain, like you said earlier, we've got a plan. This is what you pay up
Yes.
front, and then you're done. I think people will
Right.
understand that, and they'd rather do that than be hit with little surprise charges, throughout the year. Alexander's watching from Amman, Jordan. He's one of our loyal viewers. Thank you for watching, Alexander. He's going to be leading a discussion on this exact topic at his next roundtable. Actually, he may not be
Awesome.
leading it, but he's participating in it. So, Alexander, hopefully we can help you out with this. Lou from Pack 757 in Tucson is watching. Thank you, Lou. We appreciate that. Okay, Anthony, we've covered
Yes.
step number 1. Plan your program. What's step number 2?
Step number 2 is usually where most people start, right? And that's where
Right.
you actually, okay, now we're going to have that spreadsheet. Now we're going to start crunching some numbers. So the next
Mm-hmm.
step is to build a budget to support your program. So we know that we want to give our den leaders X amount of dollars. Let's say it's $5 per scout per meeting, right? Then you need to multiply that out. How many kids do we expect? How many den meetings are we going to have in a year? And then that way, the den leaders know that they have an annual budget. How your pack allows for distribution of that to accumulate. We allowed those den leaders to build up those funds. So if they didn't, not every den meeting is going to require you to spend $5 per scout, right? Maybe you spend $0, and next meeting you've got $10 now, right? We've had den leaders that would build up and they would take their kids bowling, right, for a fun activity. So having that discussion though is building that budget so that how much what does this dream of a program look like where you don't have to nickel and dime and go your parents every time that there's something new. So do you include the registration fees, right? Awards and recognition, not just for the youth, right? So how many belt loops do you expect to buy? Do you have a policy of how many at-home adventures a family can do where the pack would fund the recognition for that? Some ran into a problem, and it only ran into a problem because they didn't have a plan ahead of time. They were kind of surprised by it. So something to think about. Also, don't forget your adult leaders and your parents who are helping out with tasks, right? Recognition for those individuals that are helping out in your pack community. That all that plays together in that budget. So we do have support materials for that. You can find them again. We have formal training. So we've got our pack treasurer on the line. So if you haven't, or who's watching, if you haven't already taken your position specific training, it is here. So the formal stuff is there. It's only 8 minutes. We try very hard in our Cub Scout training modules to make them brief, give you the information you need to know without going into too much detail, but rather give you the source of where you should go if you're looking for more detail. So that again is on my.scouting, and it is part of position specific training for pack committee chair. The other resource that we have is on scouting.org. So if you go to Cub Scout homepage on scouting.org under pack committee resources, we have 2 documents that are fantastic. We do keep them up to date, so the dollar figures are accurate. We have the planning your annual pack budget, which is a step-by-step. I think it's like 12 steps, maybe 14 steps, very detailed of how you would build a pack budget using the pack worksheet. And we have that as an Excel document, so it's really easy to go in there, make your edits, and then save them. And then that gives you your total pack budget. What does it cost to run your pack for the whole year, right? That's what you're trying to get to build
Mm-hmm.
that budget. And remember, a budget, there's a reason why we created this on an Excel spreadsheet and not a stone tablet. This is malleable. This is a work in progress. It's a guide. It's a roadmap. It's not your budget should be a roadmap. It should not be like, oh, we have to do this, right? It is something you review at your monthly parent meeting so that everyone's involved, everyone understands where you're at, and where the money's coming and coming from and where the money's going. So that's another point though. So any other
Mm-hmm.
questions that we got or shout outs that we want to give to
Yes.
folks that are watching?
Absolutely. And by the way, I just want to reassure everybody, Anthony's given you a lot of good information, a lot of good resources. If you're taking notes, that's great. But just so you know, you don't have to. This video will be here on this Facebook page when we're done. You can go back to watch it. You can skim through to your favorite parts. You can click on those links, go to all those resources. Excellent resources out there. Shout out to Shelly who's watching. She is a Cub Scout commissioner. Mark is
Right.
watching. Mark says, in his opinion, planning the program is easy. That's the easy part for them. Good, Mark. Appreciate that.
Good.
Rusty, shout out to Rusty from Pack 84 in New Philadelphia, Ohio. Sherry from Pack 2 in Oneida, New York. Jennifer from Pack 434 in Nixa, Missouri. Chad points out that his pack buys their kits. I think he's talking about playing with derby kits for their scouts. Good. That means they work it in
Excellent.
the budget, obviously. Yep.
Right.
Kenny has what I think is kind of a question, and you might be going to get to this, Anthony. But his question, he says, it's. I think what he's asking is, he says it's hard to do with a pack or work with a pack that has very little fundraising opportunities. I think you're going to talk about fundraising in a second, and I think maybe what Kenny is saying is that he wishes they had more fundraising opportunities than they actually offer. And real quick shout out to Kenny from Pack 62 in Kansas City. Any thoughts on that, Anthony? Are you going to get to fundraising here in a second by any chance?
Well, that's a great segue, right? That's actually step number 3. So, right, we built our program. We've developed a program. Now we've built a budget to support that. Now you got to fund it, right? So now is the next part, right? So everything else so far is just planning, it's pie in the sky. But now this is where the boots on the ground actually happens. And you have to find a way to fund your program. Now, there's several ways to do this, right? And the one that's going to work best is the one, it's not going to be, I have a saying that I grew up with professionally, which is it's not the plan that makes you successful. It's the commitment to the plan, right? So whatever plan your pack and the families in your pack are committed to is going to be the one that's most successful. So I'm not here to pitch one product over another or how to do it, which way. That you have freedom of that. What I will share with you is through my 20 years of experience doing this, is there are fundamentally 2 types of fundraisers. You're going to have fundraisers that you have a low cost point. Okay, so let's call those the 5 and under type of fundraiser. So it only costs that person $5 to to participate, right? So whatever, maybe it's a widget, maybe it's a product, and that sell point is only $5. If you're going to have a successful fundraiser with something that's a low dollar value, you need to work on volume, right? That's the focus. Then it's on volume, it's transactions. You got to get a lot of people. Now, on the other end of the spectrum are products that are high dollar, but they're going to be low volume, right? And those tend to be based on relationships. That's where you're going to have maybe $20, $30, $50 or above type of items that you sell, but those items sell usually to people who you have an established relationship with, and so you do lower volume, right? So those are things to consider when you're looking at, how are we going to do, what kind of fundraising are we going to do? Remember, there's no gambling's not allowed in scouting, so you can't do raffles, you can't do 50-50s, you can't, those are not, there needs to be a value to the exchange. And then dues, right? So just because you have funding doesn't mean that you don't have dues. You can have a combination of the two. You can say that because of our pack program, what we plan on delivering, which is awesome, and we're only going to ask you parents to contribute once, is let's just say it comes to $200 for the year, right? And that's all inclusive, right? We're not gonna nickel and dime you for pack meetings or den meetings. We're gonna give you Pinewood Derby cars, includes a blue and gold banquet, all this kind of stuff. Well, we have a fundraiser coming up, and everyone has a goal to sell X amount of dollars, right? And based on the commission of those X amount of dollars, there's $200 that comes into the pack. So if you meet your goal, you don't have to pay dues. So that makes sense, right? A lot of times I see fundraisers fail, not only in scouting, but also in schools and other clubs and things that my kids have been part of as well. it's not clear why they're doing the fundraising. And if parents aren't clear and they don't understand why you're selling a product or why you're doing this fundraiser or where the money's going, they're not going to participate. So if you have low
Mm-hmm.
participation in a fundraising, that might be that's systematic. That's a symptom of maybe the disease is they don't know where why do we need to raise this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this all inclusive? I already paid my registration fees. Did my registration fees cover that? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a communication issue, um, and understanding where the money comes from, where it's going to go, is really the best way to get all parents involved. Knowing that, look, if you don't hit your sales goal, then we're going to take wherever you did sell, we're going to take that off your bill. But then after that, you're going to be on the hook for X amount of dollars in dues.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that in the middle of the game. So that's another key element of all this, is that this is pre-planning. And it kind of leads us into our next um, uh, our last step, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
to simply communicate. Everyone's
Yes.
got to know what's going on.
Right.
Um, all the
So,
families should know. Yeah.
well, so before we get into step number 4, which is, by the way, the fourth and final step to a healthy pack budget, I want to share a comment that we got from someone watching named Dan. And Dan, I think, has a fair comment that I would imagine is not unique to Cub Scouts, but I would think anyone trying to lead an extracurricular activity. Dan says that they have trouble with the number of parents who are not able to afford the initial, just the basic BSA national fee that you charge to be a
Mm-hmm.
member, much less any pack fees. He said they've had a number of potential scouts, never come back from, I'm guessing, a join night or a meeting night due to that initial cost. And he says fundraising is tough because everyone is fundraising, right? If your kids are in sports, they're fundraising
Yep.
also. So there's all kinds of fundraising. And so I don't know. It's tough. I understand what he's saying. Anthony, I wonder, any thoughts on a selling point if you're faced with a family like that who's kind of on the fence about this whole thing?
Yeah, so if you know that you've got a community that you may have those opportunities where you've got a family that's in need, or a family that's going through a rough patch, build that into your PAC program and part of your PAC budget, right? We're going to have quote unquote scholarships for some families. But then you go into, okay, well, how are we going to fund that, right? So that's where those fundraisers come to. And yes, I get it. Everyone's fundraising, especially when you get to a certain age, it seems like everyone wants your child to sell something because they figured out that kids that are cute in an elementary school uh, make it easy to sell things. Uh, my suggestion, though, is when you look at what your pack is going to sell or what your fundraising is going to be like, that you make it unique, right? That's the key element. Is it something that no one else is selling or doing? So if you're in a community, and let's just say that they're selling, everyone has discount cards, right? They'll discount cards, and everyone's selling those things, then the market's saturated. Probably not a great place to sell discount cards, right? If that's what everyone's doing, coupon books, right? Uh, so that's something that you can start looking at. Okay, well, what is something that may be unique to our community that only we have access to, that we can that we can sell or we can build a fundraiser around. There was a troop I know of, were part of for a little bit, that their annual fundraiser was a spaghetti dinner. And it wasn't just a spaghetti dinner. This thing had been going on for decades, so like 40 years, right? And it was a community event. Everyone from the surrounding area came to the spaghetti dinner. They knew when it was, but the great part about it was that they had a model of how they sold tickets and how they sold, how many dinner tickets they sold. The scouts had a sales list. They would call their leads, the people who bought last year. They would make sure they call them again next year. So those are some basic fundraising techniques and sales techniques that there's no reason why Cub Scouts couldn't do that too, especially in small communities where you may feel that your resources are limited, right? make sure that those that have said, yeah, I'm willing to support your program, are asked again. And there's lots of techniques for when you're actually are selling something. If you're going to do a sale of something, that I see commonly mistakes all the time. Kids are sitting behind a table, they're sitting down, they're not engaging, and the first thing that they ask, which is the worst thing that you could do, is say, would you like to buy dot dot dot, wherever the product is. That is not that's going to greatly decrease your sales, because no one wants to buy anything, really. That's what I tell our kids. No one wants to buy anything. So the lead needs to be, would you support my Cub Scout pack? Would you support my Cub
Right.
Scout program? Right. And that's a different ask, right? That
Yep.
immediately I don't have to worry about, I'm not necessarily purchasing something that I need or want. My motivation is to help support this program
Right.
that this child is part of, right? So
And
that's a technique.
that I was going to say that kind of comment also. A lot of former scouts out there who are now adults, and when they
Yes.
say, they're sitting there in the uniform, support my pack. I think that well, maybe it's more in the heart than it is in the head, right? But I think that triggers
Right.
something. Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt there, Anthony. Go ahead.
No, any other questions or shout outs that we want to give out then?
Yes, we have a few more to go. Some really good comments. A lot of folks watching. We have covered 3 of the 4 steps to a healthy dollars and cents pack budgeting. I'm going to have Anthony go over the first 3 real quick before we hit number 4. Before we do that, though, some good comments. Olga, a shout out to her, watching from Pack 789 and Pack 707 in North Charleston, South Carolina. Ona, she says that, speaking of selling products, you mentioned this, Anthony, selling something that maybe is a little bit unique that no one else can offer. They sell pine cone fire starters from their pack. No one else in their area sell those, so it's a big seller for our pack. Very, very
There you go.
cool. Let's see, Patrick, real quick, from Hanson, Missouri, Pack 34. Todd from Troop 601 in Farmingdale, New York. He's an assistant scoutmaster. Thank you, Todd. We allow Scouts BSA families, volunteers to watch
Absolutely.
Cub Chat
Great.
live as well. We love it. Yes. Patrick is echoing something that you said when doing fundraisers. When asking for dues. And when encouraging people to participate in fundraisers. He says the why is important. For example, when you're telling a Cub Scout family why you need to help us do this fundraiser, we're not just making money for fun, right? It's why we are trying to do, he says,
Yes.
in their pack, they're trying to do quarterly Zoom meetings with their parents to talk about the program and why it's important and what they're trying to do and things like that. And they're trying to add some budgeting and cost into it as they go along to let people know, basically where the money's going to go, right? Why this is important that you do this. Patrick also points out that many restaurants will do fundraising days, like you can partner with local establishments and you encourage everybody to go there. And on that particular day, from a certain amount of time, maybe a certain percentage of their sales will go to a local nonprofit or something like that. Very, very cool. Lots of good comments. Shelley, they do a spaghetti dinner also. They have a service auction. Cub Scouts donate different services, like teaching someone how to ride a bike or doing yard work.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's
Auctioning off
great.
services. Yep.
That is great.
Shout out to Stacy from Biloxi, Mississippi. Family Pack 212 and Troop 212, boys and girls. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Anthony, why don't you just real quick, let's recap the first 3 steps and then hit them with step number 4.
Right. So the first step, right, is not going to be get the spreadsheet out or look at the budget from last year. The first step is sky's the limit. Build your ultimate program for the year. Then you get out your calculator, your spreadsheet, and then start pushing those numbers that match and fund that program, and then come up with ways of how are we going to fund this, and be very specific. And that brings us to the last part, and a lot of the conversation that we just had is about communicating that back to the parents so that they know, and it's transparent. They know where the money's coming from, why we're doing this fundraiser, what we're doing it for. Your fall, if you do 2 fundraisers, we would do one in the fall, and that was how we financed our budget year. That was our ultimate, because our sales for the fall happened almost right after we did recruitment, right? And so, yes, we told parents, here's our dues, or you can participate in this product fundraiser and not have to pay any dues, right? I know of a pack that when I shared that with them, they said, "Oh yeah, we do that too." However, if a parent is going to just stroke a check for the dues, the cost is higher. And I thought that was ingenious.
So,
Like, but yeah, we
huh.
have some parents who just don't want to bother with
Right.
fundraising. They'd rather just stroke a check and just tell me how much it costs, and I'll write the
Hmm.
check up front and I'll be done with it. So we have that other end of the spectrum that we don't want to ignore either. And so they kind
Hmm.
of added a surcharge to do that if you weren't going to
Right.
participate in our fundraiser, because there are some lessons that are being learned, and that's
Right.
part of the program.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and I like the Zoom calls that we're talking that were being discussed. Your pack budget should be part of your monthly parent meeting. Whoever your pack treasurer is should be giving at least a basic report of how much money is in the checking account, where it's at, uh, and how much money was spent in the past month, and any receipts that are due, those types of things. All that should be part of, and it's not an hour long presentation. It's not a PowerPoint. It's just
Yeah.
a real quick, couple minutes. This is where we're at. And uh, a key part of that, as we're talking about communicating, right, is transparency. You want to be absolutely transparent. Again, where's the money coming from? Why are we doing this? We did a spring fundraiser, and our spring fundraiser was solely to fund our summer programming. That's and so if you didn't participate in that, then you could still go to our summer programming that we had planned, but you just had to pay up front, right? It wasn't covered. So knowing that that got us a really high engagement level with all of our parents, because they understood why they were doing it, and they'd rather have their child earn their own way, than have to write a check, and that's a key motivator.
Hmm.
And that transparency. Part of that is also security. So having transparency with your pack financials helps create a secure environment. That's the other part that you need to communicate with parents. Our money is secure. We have checks and balances in place. Officially, these are called separation of duties. So your pack treasurer should not have the ability to or authority to uh, make the decision on approving purchases. That should be the pack committee chair, cub master at minimum, right? Those
Right.
guys can say, yes, this is an approved item that we can spend money on, but the treasurer does not have the say in that, right?
Right.
That prevents someone who's holding the checkbook who can also approve writing the check. Right. And when I say approve, I don't mean signing the check. I mean that these funds were authorized. Right. So that transparency and showing parents that the money that you are raising is going to be safe, it's going to be secure, and it's going to be used for these reasons that we told you up front. That gets you a lot more parental engagement and more commitment to your fundraising plan and your funding your program year.
Very, very nice. We've got a lot of comments. My apologies if I don't get to them all, but you guys are doing great,
Let's get them.
sharing ideas back and forth. Alice is a Cub Master with Pack 807 in Banner Elk, North Carolina. She says that they follow basically all the steps we had mentioned so far. She says the one thing they ask families to pay at the very beginning is the national BSA registration fee. After that,
Yep.
they try to cover everything with
Take care.
fundraising as best they can. That's their goal. They try to cover all of their expenses. They also
It'd be
offer
interesting to know
assistance
if they
if
also
needed.
do, do you
Yep,
pay
go
for
ahead.
your adult do they pay for your adult leaders
You
too?
must have been reading the comments because she says they pay for all their adults. Yes, very good. Wendy, who is the treasurer for Pack 533, she says they bring sample budgets to their planning meeting in July, planning for the upcoming year. And that budget includes planned activities, the fees they known, and then other wish list items. And they create scenarios on a per scout cost based on various headcount numbers, depending on how many they're going to have registered for that year. It comes down to figuring how much will be covered by dues and how much is left to cover by fundraising. Very well said, I think. Mary
Well,
Lou
as
from
we're talking
PAX.
about fundraising, I want to insert real quick.
Yep.
There is a form. It's called the unit fundraising, not fundraising. Unit fundraising permit or something like that. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember the exact term.
I know
But
you're
there is a
talking about.
form
Yep.
that before you do any fundraising, that you need to
Hmm.
fill out and submit it to your council. Now, the council, quote unquote, approves that, but the only reason why they would disapprove it is because you're doing something that is not within the bylaws of the BSA, which, for example, would be if you want to do some kind of a raffle or some gambling event, those aren't allowed, right? So remember, unit money earning application. That's what it's called, because we can't make things simple all the time. So unit money earning application. On the back of that form are all the rules about fundraising that are part of the BSA bylaws. So that's the important part of that form. And that can be found online at scouting.org. You can just Google it.
You mentioned discount cards earlier, Marilou, from PAX 89, 78, and Troop 78 in the Golden
Woo.
Empire Council. They sell camp cards, which is basically discount cards. Or the
Yep.
cards cost $5 each. The scouts keep half of each sale. She says they sell
Yep.
out of their cards, and they've got scouts earning their way to camp, which is awesome. Very, very cool. One more comment I wanted to point out. Yeah, unit money earning application. Dave points that out. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And yes, we've got a couple of final comments I want to share real quick. I'm sorry, Anthony, real quick. Yeah, Wendy. Wendy says, great topic. She's been working with the PAC leadership to finalize next year's program. So we've got some folks who right now are working on a program for next fall, which is perfect, good timing. They're going to arrive at a dues cost that includes a lot of the activities such as Pinewood Derby, Blue and Gold. They use historical cost to determine the cost, and then they adjust for increases and changes as the program changes every year. So
It's
they
a
use their
roadmap,
previous
right?
budget as a model, knowing that you might change things for the next fall. Jesse says, great topic. Patrick wants to know if any scouts are available to come and clean up his yard. He's sounds like he's looking for to do some fundraiser there. Well, his fundraiser idea is to sell little American flags. I think that's what his garden. He says they cost cheap. They're very cheap, and you can sell them for a couple of bucks. Make good money there.
Right.
Good for on 4th of July, Veterans Day, things like that.
Right.
Lots of
I
more
think that
good
also goes
comments
back to
coming in.
that sounds like a low dollar item
Right.
means you're going to have
You're
high
going
volume, right?
right.
So that it's, and what you want to avoid, you want to avoid more than 2 fundraisers a year, right? You
Right.
don't want to be fundraising all year long. You don't want to be fundraising once a month. I'm not a big fan of car washes, just because car washes, I haven't seen really successful car washes, and so people do it. They only get a couple $100, and then
Yep.
that doesn't do anything to fund their program for the year. So then what do? They plan another car wash, right? And so they keep on planning fundraisers that aren't doing what they need to do. So be cautious of that too. Look for that in your fundraising plans as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent discussion. Lots of comments, folks. You guys did great. Anthony, you did great as always. Any final thoughts before we let you go on finances?
Yeah, I really want to hit on that. We know those 4 steps. They're very basic, but make sure you use the training modules that we have on my.scouting. Visit those, take those training courses. Even if you're not in that position, you don't have to be registered in that position. Just take those training courses. They're 18 minutes was the longest one. The other one's 8 minutes. Take the time to do those. Take notes. Look at our past roundtable posts or past Cub Chat Live posts. Keep those conversations going. Talk to other leaders. Engage your district executive or someone, a council employee, because there's some topics that are very specific to a council when it comes to fundraising that you also want to be aware of. And I love when someone mentioned that they pay for their adults too. We did that in our PAC.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
you know, that registration fee, when you pay that for an adult leader, you are worth that to us at least, right? You're
Yep.
going to spend an hour a week or more with running the den meeting, or being an assistant, whatever. I don't care what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're worth that much to us. In addition to that, we built into our ultimate PAC budget. We would pay for a leader to go to Wood Badge, which is a high-level leadership training course. There might be some other, how about basic adult leader outdoor orientation? That training
Right.
in person usually costs some money. So, but factoring in those costs as well really helps you build a PAC community where no one feels like they're being nickel and dimed. Everyone knows where the money is coming from. Everyone knows where the money is going to, and everyone has a say in that, is the best model that you can possibly have, because it all comes down to this. It's not the plan that's going to make you successful. It's the commitment to the plan. And the only way you get commitment from someone is that they feel like they're part of it. So,
Excellent, excellent. Well said, Anthony. Thank you so much for your time today, sir. And thank you for
my
everyone
pleasure.
watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As a reminder, this will be online on the Facebook page you're watching on right now forever. And
Right.
share it, watch it again, share it with your friends. Tag it with your
Tag your
friends.
pack
Exactly.
treasure. Yep.
Exactly. Yes, it is. It is meant to be shared with everyone. We appreciate all of you watching. We'll be back on Tuesday for a Trek on Tuesday. That's at 3 p.m. Central Time, and we'll be back next Friday. We're back next Friday, right, for another
believe
Cub
so.
Chat live episode.
Yes.
So
Yes.
everybody tune in there. We appreciate it. Is next Friday the holiday? Anthony, am I wrong on that? Now I can't remember. Behind this, okay. So
there it is. Yes, next Friday is a
thank
holiday.
you. By the way,
Yep.
we should do a really quick shout out to behind the scenes. Brian is out today. Our good friend Gina is filling in behind the scenes. It's not easy, folks. All right, I've tried it. It's not easy. Excellent job by Gina behind the scenes. She's the one who reminded us we're not on next Friday. Next Friday is a holiday, so join us in a couple of weeks. Thank you all again for watching today. We appreciate it. So long, everybody. Bye-bye.